name is Ken Deemer. I am one of the managing partners at Local Roots Landscaping in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I am a hardscaper.
My name is Patrick Murray, and I'm one of the managing partners at Local Roots Landscaping, and I am a hardscaper.
Welcome to the I Am a Hardscaper series on the How to Hardscape podcast, where we sit down and interview hardscape business owners and do a deep dive on how they became a hardscaper and how they operate their business. Ken and Patrick have a great story here that they share, and we get into a lot of different aspects of their business. If you want to hear more from them, go check out the Kid Contractor podcast. They have an episode back in that catalog, and it is a great starting point to get to learn more about Ken and Patrick here. And if you're adding outdoor lighting into your installations, go check out Inlight Design. That's INLITE Design on Instagram. Get some inspiration from their page and take a look at their lighting products that they offer the hardscape industry and landscape industry, and go tell them that you found out about them from the How to Hardscape podcast and start a conversation with them, as well as Cycle CPA. If you need a team of bookkeepers, accountants, or CFO services for your business, especially at this time of year when we are starting to get really busy and bookkeeping gets placed on that back burner, go check out Cycle CPA, start a conversation with them, and if you let them know that you learned about them from the How to Hardscape podcast, you get $200 off their services. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode. All right, Ken and Patrick, let's get started to get to know a little bit more about the two of you, how you two got started in the industry. Take this however you want it, take it wherever you want it, but a little bit of background information about the two of you, whoever wants to start here.
Yeah, awesome, man. And thanks so much again for having us here. So Ken and I were just in our 9th season of business together as business partners, and started back in 2014. We had both just come out of college, realizing, we had just kind of a passion for the outdoors, passion for the industry, and had some lawns we were already maintaining. So we figured we would, just continue to capitalize on that. And after a few years of mowing and landscaping, we started out doing everything together every day. We thought it was super fun to work with your best friend, and soon realized it was time to maybe have some separate time in the truck and not just be working together for 18 hours a day. But we then started hiring, an employee or two under each of us. We divided. I was handling most of the landscaping, and then Ken was handling all of our maintenance contracts. And really, we were just craving getting into that hardscaping scene. We had seen it happening all around us. Unfortunately, I wasn't working for a company for years and years learning those skills. Neither was Ken. I had been around a very little bit of it, but we just had the softscape. We had the maintenance, the kind of the easier stuff to get into, the lower cost of entry. So really craving that, and even being jealous of the companies who had been started by owners who had 10 years of experience working for other companies. I'm like, man, we're never going to be able to get there because we just don't have the time to do that, to invest in that. And so we actually ended up hiring a mentor of ours who was one of those people. He had, 5 or 6 years under his belt just building high-end outdoor living spaces. And we hired him on as kind of our teacher / employee. So we had this weird dynamic where we were paying him, but essentially we were paying him to just lay into us and teach us how to build these spaces. And so there were some funny days where he would, basically refuse to do certain work that we would have him do. And we had to be okay with that because we were dependent on this guy to teach us everything that we now know and were able to basically spread to our employees. So that's a very nutshell version of, how we started from college days to where we are now. And I didn't even get to half of where we are now, but I don't know if Ken, you want to expand on that at all?
Yeah, so it, like Patrick said, the entrance into the industry caught us by surprise a little bit. Like, it wasn't anything that either of us had intended on. Patrick's goal throughout college, and one that I kind of joined in with him, was basically, we're going to work for a couple hours on Saturday and make what the rest of our friends are making working a part-time job over the summer. So that's what cantilevered us into it. And then, like Patrick said, from there, it just one thing after the next. And one thing, especially in the beginning, we always just had this hunger for growth and for more. And it was just more for the sake of more oftentimes, which didn't do us much good or help us at all. And like Patrick said, it was not until we kind of started relying on others and building that out more substantively that we started seeing kind of actual, real, true growth in the company, both within ourselves and our staff.
Definitely. Yeah, let's pick this apart a little bit here. What was it about the outdoor living space construction scene that drew you guys towards it? Was it just a matter of, like you said, growing for growing's sake, to have more to keep on building on top of that? But what was the decision in especially being a partnership to kind of add that and to take on that mentor as an employee and to build towards this?
Yeah, so I can definitely speak on that. I know that I'll speak for both of us that we have, in some good ways and in some bad ways, just an insatiable desire to just learn and acquire and just like know how things work and to just see cool things happening. That happen. Both Ken and I have an absolute passion for traveling, and it might be going to see the spaces that have never been seen before. A very large country that has the best beaches ever. So just realizing like there was more to get out of this industry and seeing it happening around us. And I don't think there was a jealousy. It was just more like, I think we can do that. And it's going to be super hard. We could easily just make money doing what we're doing now. But I actually crave that, like, I don't know, that steep learning curve and the pain that's going to come with that, because I know on the other end, I'm going to be super proud of what we've created and then what we're able to now create tenfold because of the crews we have doing it. So it was, that would be, I guess, that desire to just create things. And I think construction in general has that vibe where you can make beautiful landscapes for sure. I absolutely love landscape installs, but when you're constructing and building from the ground up, I don't know, it's truly building something. I think that we have that in us. So,
and I'm grateful that we entered the industry when we did, because you drive around Pittsburgh, and that's where we're based, is the Pittsburgh area. And you see hardscapes that went in, 15, 20 years ago, and they are just so bland, so generic. But man, I'll tell you what, when we got started, there was just so much innovation happening in the industry, whether it was tools, whether it was what different vendors are providing, different companies just completely raising the bar, just like every day. There was just so much inspiration around when we were starting that you didn't have to look too hard to find like the next cool thing to be creative about or find inspiration from someone who's doing it on such a high level.
Definitely. I'm not a linear person here, guys, so we're going to be jumping around a little bit here. I want to backtrack to where you guys first met and first decided to enter in this partnership. What was it about the two of you that you decided you would work well together, or you would complement each other? And how has that evolved and transformed over the years to where you are today in the business? Yeah,
so Patrick and I were best friends growing up. We met each other. We went to the same youth group throughout high school. So met each other there, kind of just became best friends. Throughout our college years, we stayed in touch. He was in school in Cleveland. I was in school out in Chicago. So we stayed in touch, traveled some. But then it was kind of after that, like whenever we got started, that we really, like, our friendship took off. And I think it was like a lot of different types of relationships. Like there's this give and take where it's kind of like halting and going. It's like, okay, I trust this person with this thing. Let's go. Let's see how it works. Okay, that worked out. Let's take it to the next level. And we just kept on growing like that. And it was, Patrick and I know, share this very distinct memory about like kind of when we made the decision to go in together. Because before that, there was very little risk based off what we were doing. We were working out of either a Honda Civic or a old Toyota Tacoma. So there was very little overhead. There was not a lot happening. But I remember we sat in Patrick's parents' living room and made the decision to, maybe with permission, maybe not, basically max out, not permission, okay. Max out Patrick's mom's credit card that she had given Patrick for emergencies only to buy our first set of mowers. And that's when we kind of said, just like, all right, we're going in, we're doing it. So bought the mowers at that point in time, kind of made the commitment where it's like, look, we're going to ride this train to the end. Let's give it, the rest of the season, see how things go. And thankfully, we had the mowers, we had the credit cards paid off in a couple of months, and his mom was none the wiser until a few years later. But that's where we really that was our jumping off point. And then from there, Patrick, get into kind of like what the growth's been like since then in terms of us working together.
Yeah, and if we're if I'm okay, if I'm allowed to not be linear here as well, I'll kind of go back a little bit here. First of all, if you think interest rates are high now, man, the interest rate on that small business loan was out of control. We had that done in about 3 months, and to add to that, I would come home and I'd beat my mom home to rip up the credit card statements and throw them away because I was doing the online bill pay and whatnot. So she never knew until it was paid off, and then she was, I think, proud of me at the end. So it was good. But no, to even take a step back further, we spent a good chunk of time in Australia together, and that was where we really formed a pretty deep bond, a deep trust there. We were on the road for about, I think it was like 2 months, where we were just living off of money that we had saved up, and then we actually ran out of money there, so we had to get creative with it. We ended up working for someone over there, painting houses and whatnot, just really making do with what we had. And then we actually came back to the US with more money than we left with after we had like a 4-month extravaganza. So we realized, like, not only do we trust each other, we work super well together under harsh circumstances, under unknowns, under different stressors and whatnot. And I think a lot of that stuff, even now, I can probably discount it. Like, I don't know why we work so well together, but looking back at like a lot of those core memories and just, I think whether sad memories, happy memories, whatever, that those kind of play a role in our friendship and our partnership today. And so as we've grown, it's definitely changed. Obviously, we don't work in the same truck, let alone the same office anymore, but we have a good respect for each other and a good understanding of how each other ticks and whatnot. And we've been able to learn quite a bit on like where each other's wheelhouses are and staying within those and being comfortable, calling each other out respectively on, hey, this is my wheelhouse. We've agreed on this, and please give me that space, give me that trust, allow me to work here, and I'll feel comfortable coming to you as well if I'm not, if I'm kind of feeling outside of my skill set as well. So, where it's grown from that point where Ken left off to now, I mean, it's changed significantly. I think he and I, as managing partners and owners of this company, as a lot of entrepreneurs do, we desire a sense of control in a lot of times. And it was a couple years back where we realized we can keep having this ultimate control. We can keep knowing about absolutely everything at all times, and it's under our complete authority. So we can have that control, or we can have growth, right? We can't have both. I think it's Craig Rochelle's a speaker I listened to, and that was his thing. You can have growth or you can have control, but you cannot have both. And we didn't want haphazard growth, but we did want it. And we really desired that together. Again, both from our professional standpoint, but then also personally, we weren't really satisfied just having that one-to-one impact, just me building a retaining wall, building the customer being done. I really wanted to see that multiply and give tons of fruit, right, in that. So I don't know if I really answered, I can't remember the original question, but hopefully that hit our relationship side of things. Now we have an extremely good relationship with conflict. I mean, he and I, conflict, I think, healthier than any other relationship in my life, sadly. But, there's just that understanding. We just really know how each other tick, and it really works well. And again, with that ultimate sense of trust, and there's just an awkward sense of trust even, and that's definitely necessary.
Definitely. You answered it. Most of my questions are vague, so don't worry if you don't feel like you've answered it. That's kind of how I roll, I guess, here. But continuing on with that and your relationship that you've built together, did you guys from the very beginning have a very similar vision where you guys were pretty much both aligned in where you wanted to take the business? And it was just a matter of how you were going to get there and maybe some arguments along the way in that sense? Or was there, can you expand a little bit on the vision and how you guys share that? Because that must be difficult in a partnership unless for whatever strange reason you guys are fully 100% aligned.
No, not even close.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit here and then Ken, I'm sure we'll say the same thing, but it's changed. I'd say it's changed all the time, right? And I think anyone who has a vision from day one that has kept that same exact vision along the way, I'm not sure if I would quite believe that, having gone through what we've gone through. And I don't think it's wrong, but having started, we initially started with wanting to work minimal hours to match our friends' pay at a part-time job, right? And that changed to wanting to work 8 to 9 months a year, working as many hours a day as possible to have the winters entirely off. And what that looked like was grass cutting together, absolute bankrolling on grass cutting, and finding fulfillment in our winter travels, right? Life goes on. We got into relationships. We got married, realizing I don't actually desire winters off. I want kind of a more balanced life. And I'm not really satisfied with working 12 to 20 hours a day. Like, it's just not, I don't desire that long term. So even that like personal standpoint and that change in both of us kind of forces you in a different path, right? So, okay, what's going to make that change? Realizing we'd like to do longer form projects and realizing, it's really cool to be exquisite and to do things that aren't limited to just grass cutting. We want to be known for something else. We want to be able to provide more for people, solve more problems. And so that's kind of where we were in the middle. And then Ken, if you want to take over from that point to even the vision of wanting to be small scale to then wanting to hire more people, get out of the field, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So where you kind of left it, Patrick, is you mentioned one-to-one work a couple times and like linear work a few times. And that's, I think, where we really kind of made one of our biggest decisions when it came to growing together. So something I would say Patrick and I shared from the very beginning was a common vision for our lives. So I would say that'd be like a super zoomed out version to say like, hey, this has to work for us, right? This has to work for us. It has to work for our family, whether that was wanting the winters off or wanting a more like even keel work-life balance throughout the course of the year. Those are kind of been constants that we've shared that have driven it, right? To say like, I'm not just going to go in here and like bang my head into a wall every single day, year after year after year for nothing that's actually going to come out on the other side. So I'd say from like high level, we've had a lot of like these shared drives the whole way through, but the way those have manifested have been wildly different. So kind of the point where Patrick was to, because that was the type of input, growth became terrifying to us because it's anything we would do would just be like, okay, if I want to take on this additional contract, if I want to do another, whatever you want to say, if I want to do another job this year, or if I want to pick up another 15 accounts or this big commercial account this year, all that means is exactly for me, it's going to add whatever 12 hours a week to my plate, or 3 hours a week, or 2 hours a week, whatever it might be. There was no way of seeing that kind of spider off and actually grow like multiplicatively. Everything was just one-to-one relationships. So whenever that's a very important thing that we shared, is we got on the same page about that and said, hey, if we're going to grow, it has to grow sustainably. It has to grow in a way where we're bringing in people to share that load. And I would say the whole way through the growth, something that we used to think, like if someone would have asked me something that I didn't like about my job, I would have said the tension with Patrick. Because growing, like there was always this tension. And we used to talk about the word tension so negatively. And the word tension, I believe, has a very bad rap. But if you think of tension in any kind of like actual real world application, it is always good. Like tension holds a bridge up. Tension holds two things apart, holds two things together that are supposed to be done. Like if like the Golden Gate Bridge had no tension to it, thousands of people would die, right? Just like immediately. So I think we had this recognition where it's like this tension, if we can learn to live with it, and if we can learn to relate well and handle it well, it's something that can supercharge our business rather than be something that is a liability for us.
And Mike, I'd love to add to this. In that tension, we had kind of a 1 year where we're at odds with each other because Ken tends to push us into our growth a bit more. And it used to be me seeing that as almost offensive. Like, how dare you challenge us on needing to work more, give more of myself, for us, when really realizing that growth didn't have to mean that we just didn't know how to get there. And so I'll touch a bit on this, but I struggle with anxiety. I've heard you normalize on the show before, which I really appreciate. And it's good to know like that those were signs that were coming out, or those things were coming out and coming to a point, right? And realizing like we need to get this under control because this is not a healthy way of life. And so, we can get into this later, but we've gotten some really awesome mentors in our life and really awesome coaches involved with us to help us to work through a lot of those decisions. Because, you don't have to be in this alone. That's an idiotic thought to think that we have to figure this all out. Even with a partner, it's still super hard. So just leaning on those who have had even a couple more years experience or wisdom for that. So that's been a lifesaver for sure.
With that and building on that, do you guys have something written down or a mutual understanding together that you can always come back to as sort of like a baseline and say, like, if one of you wants to do something in the business or the other person wants to grow in a certain way, do you have something to come back on and say, does this, meet our baseline? Does this get us to what our main vision is together? Or is it kind of a step-by-step basis that you guys kind of create that tension and try to get over that?
Yeah. So I would say if we're going to zoom back the whole way out, the biggest thing we share is like our friendship and our relationship we've had through the years, and faith. Those are kind of like the two things that I would say we rely on much more than any written agreement in terms of making decisions together and just having this very high level of trust in one another. After that, we have our company mission statement, we have our company vision statement, and then we have our core values. So whether that's us making our decisions with one another or making our decisions with people on our team, those are what really inform that. We have written business plans. We have saying like, hey, here's where we're going to go in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. We found that those aren't typically what ends up happening. But it is always good to kind of have that like forward thinking, make sure we're all on the same page about where we're heading. But again, we're typically going back to, and I think is what you're getting at, is like the deeper principles to say like, hey, where do we want to go? How does this work for our families? How does this work for our teams? Is this supportive of our deep level goals? And then everything from a tactile perspective, like, are we going to get into this market? Are we going to launch this extra team this year? Are we going to hire this account manager? Those are typically easily informed by those deeper level truths.
Yeah, and anything Ken's developing, so he tends to be our business developer where, hey, we're going to look into this kind of pool company. Hey, we're going to look into this architect. So he would do that, and I don't like grant him permission, but I would have an awareness of anything new that's happening to give pushback, to challenge, to say, hey, are you actually using your time wisely? And vice versa for me. I'm on the hiring end of things. If I tell him things that I'm looking into developing or like moves that we're making in the company that way, he would also challenge us against our like maybe unspoken rules or our baseline, right? But typically there's that trust where it's like, hey, if you're going to make a final decision, it's going to be run through me. So I don't mind you doing the research on that.
Definitely. Excellent answers there. And with that, and let's stick with actually this. What do you guys do currently in the business? What are your roles that you split up between one another? And was there a learning curve to developing those roles for you yourself in the business?
Yeah, so it's actually funny you're asking this. We hold each other accountable to like our 3 mission criticals, we'd say. So just about anyone you'll listen to will say like, you can only do about 3 things really well. If you try to do more than that, you're going to like start failing at some of those. So trust me, we try to do about 100 every week, and it's not good. But the 3, if I were to sum it up into the 3 things that I am responsible for, right, at their core, would be the company finances and numbers. And that's, again, evolved, and we can kind of get into how that's evolved. Our company systems and processes. And then most importantly, for me at least, and the thing I hold most dear to my heart would be our culture and our people. So those 3 things would fail, we would say, if I were to just remove myself from the picture very quickly, right? And so finances, how that's evolved. I mean, it used to be me taking the cash and check payments from all of our customers door to door, going to the bank, making sure that's working out, whatever that meant back in the day. And then splitting the paychecks for Ken and I, to trying to work at bookkeeping on QuickBooks, to handling the deposits on a very large form, to hiring my mom as our first like check collector, and then now it's evolved.
I have not thought about that for years.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I forgot you even did that.
So, and that was long nights of me being on the computer till midnight, just receiving payments, right? And now it's evolved into having an amazing office staff, an amazing office manager who is more meticulous than I could ever be, running the show, us hiring a financial consultant speaking into my life, making sure that basically the numbers I'm receiving now make sense. And so that's really been, talk about a relief of anxiety, having people who are just on their stuff with finances. That's been a huge evolution for our company. Systems, same thing. It was all in our head at one point. Now, and then it was me writing all these systems, and now it's me usually delegating what systems need to be created, right? And finding the needs, going into the culture part, constantly reaching out to our staff. What's missing? What's lacking? What do you need? I'll create a system for you. Let's delegate it. So, and then lastly, that culture portion. I currently do actually all the hiring, and I do all the hiring. I do all of the company event organizing, anything from like making sure the shop looks nice to just like general vibe of the company, if that makes sense. I put out tons of surveys. I mean, it's really like, I guess, like shepherding in a way. Like I'm just making sure the flock is like doing well and they're healthy. And it's from a physical health, obviously, and a mental health, and emotional health. Like I don't really have a tangible way to speak about it, but even when I put surveys out, like, what do you guys need me to be doing from a mission critical standpoint? And most people will say like, just keeping that attitude up that you have, keeping the encouragement up that you have, being available for us when you need us. Like it's generally being that resource for our team. And I think that is very noticed around here, not just me being that resource, but the general environment here. So culture it's a buzzword, but I'd say I think we do it pretty well. So
yeah, and I'd like to I think it's worth mentioning, Patrick, I do believe is very phenomenal at it. And that's, I would say, a great way in which he helps cover my strength. That's my, is it EQ, emotional quotient? I think it's pretty low, all things considered, like in terms of like knowing what to say or how to help people or how to be there for them. And as recently as today, I told Patrick on the phone, like I just stopped him. I was like, dude, I appreciate you so much because the way that you like are coming at this situation, like I know in my heart it's like absolutely right, and it's nowhere near where my head was, so I think it's something that absolutely can't be discounted, and just a critical part of our organization is, I think you undersold it, Patrick, in terms of how valuable it is and how valuable your work is there. Yeah, and so then one thing that I think we just kind of share, and it's nebulous, it's hard to kind of explain it clearly, is just helming the ship and just the general direction where the company's going. So we do have a lot of crossover. We have a weekly meeting that ranges anywhere from, I don't know, 90 minutes to 3 hours. And it's just where we're kind of reviewing all things local roots and figuring out kind of what the next steps are. That's where if I'm struggling with issues on my side of the company, I'll bring those to Patrick, and vice versa. So that's something we share, is just the general kind of overall direction. And then for me, my 3 things I really focus on is, 1, production. So both kind of design, build, and maintenance side of things. One of Patrick's direct reports is our senior project manager. So he shares that with me as well. But just making sure that everything there is heading in the right direction, make sure people are resourcing their teams correctly. I've always been a little bit more on the kind of the tactile side of things there, whether it be equipment, personnel, vehicles, all that type of stuff. Second is going to be sales and design. We have a fantastic manager in that department who runs everything. And that's kind of under my umbrella of management as well. So just making sure everything's heading in the right direction there, watching the numbers, making sure our teams are functioning well. We're selling the kind of stuff we want to be selling, and designing the types of things we want to be designing. And then third and finally, Patrick touched on a little bit, was just the new business development, kind of making sure that as we continue to grow, we're looking at stuff that's going to be, 6 months to 2 years down the track in terms of relationship building, bringing in new products, kind of just where we want to be heading overall as a company. So right now for us, that's heading in the direction more of pool installations, and we're working on growing our maintenance division pretty dramatically in the coming years. So just kind of laying the groundwork for that. Some are big, some are just as simple as forming relationships with architects or local designers or general contractors, things of that nature.
Definitely. What as you grow and as you take on larger projects, like you talked about earlier, moving towards larger projects in your schedule, why did you decide to hold on to the maintenance side of things? Is that the recurring business model that you want to hold on to kind of diversify your business a little bit more? Can you talk a little bit about why you held on to maintenance? And was there even like a conversation as to we should get rid of the maintenance?
There was not a conversation. There were 3 years of conversations. And then one day we fell down, hit our heads super hard, and got up and we're like, we should keep doing maintenance. No, it came down to, again, finding people that complement our weaknesses. So that's something where Patrick and I were both at the end of our rope with it. It was something that we held on to the maintenance department from the very beginning. There's a couple friends we have in the Pittsburgh area that beginning of last year, they sold the whole maintenance division. There's like, I can't deal with this. Design build's been booming. And we were close, I'm not going to lie to that. But then we ended up saying like, hey, we're going to give this a genuine run, because we recognized we weren't doing it in a sustainable way. So we ended up bringing in an individual who has been wanting to run a maintenance division for a very long time. Hadn't had a chance to give it a great try. He'd been at a few other companies that had kind of promised him the world to get him in, and then ends up he's in the truck cutting grass 4 days a week. So yeah, we brought him in, and then from there the division just exploded in a really positive way. Part of our vision for that is recognizing that the economy is dynamic and the industry is dynamic. So wanting to bring in a little more maintenance to insulate ourselves. We don't do snow work. So in terms of having 12 months of income, it's super nice to have those maintenance checks rolling in. It's definitely not without its share of issues. We had it's not without a share of issues for sure. Maintenance is definitely management heavy. But we've been able to build a great team with it so far. And as we continue to grow, we find ways to improve it, and we always want to be sensitive to those.
How have you guys managed not doing snow plowing, say in the winter? What do you do with your employees? Do you try to still extend your season as much as possible with those outdoor build spaces?
Yeah, so we do a mix of things, and we currently have some of our staff who really enjoys being laid off in the winters. They take, 1.5 to 2 months off to rest, relax, travel, do their thing. That obviously is not the majority anymore. As we're growing, we have obviously, career workers who want full-time work. So we do a mix of things. We have still have like a 3-week period in Pittsburgh that's just absolutely unworkable. I mean, it's just frozen, disgusting weather in like mid-February usually hits. But we'll work through that with lighter crews, tent work, with tent setup and whatnot. We do some interior remodeling as well. So some of the skills obviously convert into interior remodels. So we will have 2 to 3 of those projects going on this winter. That's going to be a very big emphasis. And then just general shop work and work around the yard and things like that. So some of it is a bit of us keeping the family busy in a way, in some ways, and it's really to have that retention and because we care for them. And I think people who don't want to be idle, it's clear very fast. So we want to make sure that we're again caring for that. Mental health is a big deal for us. So
definitely. I just want to take a break from today's episode to talk about our sponsor, Cycle CPA. You may have a CRM or project management software in place, but what data are you using to ensure your estimating is accurate? Having a proper accounting setup and accurate bookkeeping done is key to understanding overhead expenses and other costs that must be recouped in your estimates. Cycle CPA is a remote bookkeeping and CFO firm that helps to connect the dots from the financial reports to the hardscape and landscape data needed in order to reach high profits. They provide landscape and hardscape industry benchmarking, job costing, financials by service line, advisory meetings, and much more. Cycle CPA's team of accountants are specialized within the hardscape and landscape industry, and you can visit them at cyclecpa.com, and for $200 off, mention the How to Hardscape podcast. Now back to our episode. We also want to say thank you to Inlight for sponsoring today's episode. Did you know that one of the easiest ways to grow your hardscape business and increase your revenue is by incorporating low voltage outdoor lighting to your projects? Using lighting can take your projects to the next level, make you more profit, and add that wow factor and make your business stand out. As a professional hardscaper, we know you need reliable and high quality products to avoid callbacks and wasted time on job sites. That's why Inlight offers some of the highest quality lights and is the quickest system to install on the market. Their patented Easy Lock connector ensures that lighting will be the easiest thing you install every time. No heavy lifting, no massive machinery, just plug and play. Not only that, but Inlight also provides many educational resources like online and in-person training, installation videos, unbeatable customer support, and more. Everything you need to successfully take your business to the next level with outdoor lighting and beyond. It's one of the many reasons why I stand behind Inlight and many other companies that provide these educational resources to their clients, to contractors, and to help us grow our businesses. So for more information on how Inlight can help grow your business, check them out on Instagram at Inlight Design. That's at INLITE Design on Instagram. DM them to find out how to put more money in your pocket this season.
And I'm sorry for straying so far away from the questions that I typically ask here, but I have millions of questions for you guys, and we're just scratching the surface here. So I appreciate your going through all these. I do have a question about getting into hiring now. What was that first hire that you guys made, and what was it that kind of started to get you closer to where you are today? This is kind of like a very vague question, as most of my questions are, but what was that initial hire that you felt started to get the ball rolling towards the company that you wanted to be?
Yeah, so there are, in my opinion, like stages of this. I think I could give you one name right now that was like the true what propelled us, but there were also hires along the way that like almost like helped us to like break the surface a little bit, right? And then there was the one breakthrough where we realized that. So Ken, I'd love to hear if this is what you would agree on, but the one hire that helped us to start breakthrough is actually no longer with us. It was our first hardscape foreman that removed myself from the field. And so it was realizing like, wait, I don't have to build that wall right now, right? And so great hire for a company of 7 people, and it was awesome. It propelled us. We realized this thing can be scalable. that was that thing. And that's really the pivotal moment, though. Ken, would you agree that Dylan would be our senior project manager? We hired him in, and that was the first person we hired in to run our projects, right? So now it's not, I don't have to build that wall anymore. It's, we have a guy who has more experience than I did building walls. He actually worked as an arborist for some time, and then he worked as a manager for some time. And he's also very passionate about this, and he loves what he does doing this, whereas my brain's going a million miles a minute wanting to do 1,000 things. And so that moment there, realizing this thing is scalable, and this thing's actually giving me a lack of anxiety. Like, this is pretty cool. I've never felt this, and so that changed us for the better, obviously. And it has been super hard and a ton of work, a ton of, coaching and helping him out. But I mean, it's paid dividends in time. Like I said, mental health, obviously growth, money, all that stuff.
And it took us getting to the absolute end of our rope. There were a few business changes we made kind of right at the beginning of that season. When we hired that individual, we brought on a business coach that year. Like, there were a few things that all happened right at once. That was a result of us saying, like, that's it. Like, I'm done doing what we've been doing. And Patrick and I were both collectively at a point where we said, like, it's not like, throw your hands up, I'm done, get mad, go away for we can come back. We were both like, we're finding different careers if this doesn't work. So that's where it got to, was like, I remember specifically one stupid little walkway around the side of a house, and Patrick and I were working on it together. And it was just, we're like, this is it. Like, I'm done. I'm not doing this. Like, it's not because of the type of work it was, not because of, we love that type of work. It's because it was just too all encompassing. The business was eating us alive. So it got to a point where it's, if I don't have the freedom and the flexibility to actually be who I need to be for my team, if I don't have the freedom and flexibility to be who I need to be for our clients, like I said, it's eating us alive. So that's what kind of triggered us to this step. And that's certainly the most dramatic point I think we've gotten to. But because we're hard-headed or something, it typically takes us getting to the end of our rope with something to make like these next big moves. And I'd say bringing in our senior project manager was a similar spot, where it's how can we expect to do this again next year?
Culture came up, talking about culture, talking about the events, the things that you guys do for your employees. How do you guys feel that's important for retaining employees? If we can touch on that a little bit. And since you've implemented things to, say, improve culture or events that you've put on, have you noticed a difference that makes on employees in your business?
Yeah. And I'm going to say, in its simplest form, what people desire in their daily lives is to be heard, to be cared for, and to be loved. So I'd say, if we were to throw out all the expensive company events, all of the happy hours, you name it, if we throw out everything, all that stuff, I still believe we would have a very similar culture to what we have currently, because it's again, this intangible. I can't write a book. I probably could, but like, I probably won't write a book about like how to have good company culture. Cause I can just say it right here. You just need to be a good person. You need to be trustworthy. You need to do what you say you're going to do. Right. And when you fail, you need to admit that failure. So you need to be real with people. And so, we have an employee who we interviewed a couple times, but the one thing that sticks with me all the time, he said, every time I come in the morning and every time I leave, I hear the words, "So good to see you, and I hope you have a great day." And that's not just me saying it, it's everyone says a version of that, right? And he said, and I know they genuinely mean it. And like, you can't put a price to that. Like, and it is, there's no BS at our shop. It's just like, we care for people, and we have a very similar like vibe going on. And that's because we hire on character, not on just skill set, right? So the company events, though, do they help? Absolutely. We have super fun times. We're planning a Pittsburgh Pirate game tailgate down in the city we're going to have probably 60 some people there. I don't know how we're going to manage that, but it's going to be a blast, right? We do Top Golf, which is like a virtual golf thing we have in Pittsburgh. I think there are other places as well. We do about monthly or bi-monthly happy hours with our office staff, and axe throwing. I mean, you name it. We did whitewater rafting a couple years back, paintballing. I mean, just all these things to just get the energy going and to get people to like have fun with their coworkers. And even when we don't have like company events, we've had our design and sales team went skiing together, and they had said, this is the first time I've ever wanted to hang out with people who are my coworkers, like voluntarily, like hearing that, I'm like, man, that's better than any event I'm holding. Like they're voluntarily doing this stuff.
Yeah. And we weren't invited. So that's why it's funny for them. Yeah.
There you go. Company breakfast we had in the winter, you talked about retention. We had some company breakfast with volunteer training, some pay training, or some just let's say eat breakfast together. We would have, I think 95% of our staff would come in at 8 a.m. to eat French toast and sausage in our shop on a freezing cold day, just because they wanted to be there. And like, again, that cost us $250 to hold that thing. And it was amazing. So.
And starting to get more into, I guess, the sales process, marketing process, and everything like that with what you're talking about here. Obviously, with these events and with investing into your employees comes added costs, which means you have to get much more selective with the type of projects that you take on that kind of match your company. How have you guys been able to accumulate those leads that are more so the type of jobs that you want to start doing? Has it just grown over time with word of mouth? Have you guys implemented different marketing strategies in terms of paid advertisement or investing into social media? Just the marketing side and the leads in general. Where have you guys kind of put your emphasis into, and where will you continue to put your emphasis or resources towards?
Yep. So a lot there.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's all good. It's all good. Great questions. So we have been, I heard it said once and it really stuck with me. And the saying was, I'm sure you and a lot of people have heard it before. You make your first $1 million by saying yes, and then you make every million thereafter by saying no. And then another statement, that's one big one. And then the other is that you create the reality that you want to be a part of. So saying no has been one of our biggest catalysts towards growth in the company. We don't even work in hardly any of the same neighborhoods we worked in when we started. And a big part of that was just saying over and over again, like, hey, this is not where we want to go as a company. Sure, it's quick money. Sure, it's easy money. Sure, we're comfortable with it. Sure, we're used to it, but it's not where we're actually heading as a company. So saying no to the type of work that we do not want to be doing and the type of clients that I don't want my team to be working with, the kind of clients that think the world owes them one, thinks that they're doing us a favor by allowing us to come and do their landscaping or hardscaping. Moving away from those clients as quickly as possible and those types of projects as quickly as possible has enabled us to work on a lot cooler projects and with a lot cooler clients, which has been super empowering to the team and then also just to our growth as we continue to go. Our word of mouth is extremely strong. We've always been really big on making sure that we're building the kind of reputation we can stand by. It's interesting to kind of tying back to the culture thing, like a lot of the intangibles Patrick was talking about. We also want to make sure to do our best to treat our clients that way as well, to just treat them like good people, to say what we're going to do, to follow through on what's happening. And unfortunately for the industry, and I'm so happy to see this changing both through people I've heard on your show and also peers in the Pittsburgh area that we've been able to talk with. The companies that are doing well are the ones who are running a good business, who are running an honest business, who are treating clients the way they need to be treated. So I think that's been very instrumental for us in terms of kind of organic and reputation. We've always leaned super hard into Google reviews. Huge number of clients that find us via Google. So Google reviews, SEO has been important to us. We had our whole website redesigned last year with just an absolutely fantastic web design team, Ramblin' Jackson. They're based out of the Denver area. They were, it was definitely sticker shock whenever we first went to go work with them, but does the best money we've invested from a marketing and development standpoint by a very broad margin. So they've been a fantastic team to work with. Our organic ranking has shot through the roof. We went from being bottom of page 8, page 9 for landscaping Pittsburgh. Now we're top result in many categories. So that's been super helpful for the growth there. And then in terms of qualifying leads, we started last year. It was a really scary thing to do, or 2 years ago, I suppose, charging for appointments. And that's aside from the rest of the pre-qualification work that we have our team do. So our sales manager is pre-qualifying almost every lead that comes in anymore. But that is after they pay for an appointment. And the number of people that we'll have people call our office, but we kind of try to hide our office number because we really want to push everyone through the filter of our website. So whenever they go to schedule an appointment, it will ask them if they want to see what their project costs. So we had a project cost calculator built in to our website by our web developers, which has been super fantastic. We push people through that. They get to build a couple things, and a lot of people get the sticker shock and just leave straight away, which is leaving us with a lot more qualified leads. And then the number of people who call our office just saying, it's like, wait, like I can't see anyone if I don't pay. Like, and they get so mad. They're like, so you're just not going to come out to my house and talk to me? It's like, no, like our time is valuable. Our people's time is valuable. So it's one of the people who takes the calls in the office has said before, it's like, I feel so bad. I feel like this, can we just go out there and maybe do it? And what I always tell them is like, no, like they are telling you who they are as a person. They're telling us they don't value our line of work. They're telling us they don't value what we do or our time or anything like that. And if they're already this upset about the fact that they're getting charged $50 to $100 for an appointment, like just wait until we get on their property to actually do the work. Like this mentality is going to be magnified and carried over tenfold. So both in terms of quality of lead from a close ratio standpoint, in terms of quality of client and for that our firm is working with, that our team gets to interact with, those have both kind of gone through the roof since we started taking that very seriously.
Yeah, and I was actually going to ask that because even on your website, like you said, you got that project builder, and then you've got that whole, what's the project that you want to build? This is the consultation charge, and it really saves a lot of time on your guys' end, on your employees' end. That whole pre-qualification process or talking to people on the phone. Has that done what you've wanted it to do? That tool on the website? Yeah,
absolutely. It's been totally phenomenal. And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, it also schedules, like it allows them to self-schedule. So we use a plugin called Acuity Scheduling, and it allows, it syncs up with our salespeople or designers calendar, whoever it may be. So these appointments just auto-populate on their calendar. So people go through that whole thing, they kind of get pre-qualified. One, have you gone through the project, like the project builder to get a generic cost put together for you? And two, are you willing to pay $50 for a consultation and wait 6 weeks for an appointment? If so, like those are kind of the big three. And then from there, it gets auto-scheduled to their calendar. They get an email saying, hey, this person just scheduled with you. And then they can kind of review the project details to make sure they still think they'd be a good fit. If they see any red flags there, then they have the opportunity to interact with them about those.
Definitely. Guys, I'm going to ask a few more questions here. I think that's all the time that we have left. So I'll make these questions count. I like to ask every business owner that comes on the show for a horror story that they've experienced for their time in business. Contracting just seems to lend itself to lots of horror stories. I asked this not to put you guys on the spot, not to blast you guys, but to help the person just starting out or wanting to get into contracting, to let them know, hey, these things do happen. This is how we kind of go about handling it, and to help them get through those times. But do you guys have a horror story that you'd want to share on the show here?
Yeah. Ken, I think I'll share with the one and only time we went to court. That seems to make sense, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, I'll share.
Then I've got one too.
Yeah, so I'll make it quick. So we had a customer went super south, and it was partly our doing, partly their doing. We again learned that we needed a project manager out of this. We learned a ton of stuff from that, but we gave them the quote. We had it all written down, word by word, what they were going to get, but they didn't. It didn't visually look like they thought it would. It was a boulder wall we put in the backyard. It was a $24,000 job, I think, something like that, $21,000 maybe, and their last third, they refused to pay. We'd go back 3, 4, 5 times to keep doing what they would say to make them happy. We kept doing it. And then it came.
We went through like 5 or 6 punch lists on that job. Yep. They give us the whole punch list. Here's what you need to do. We'd go back to it and they'd be like, here's what else you need to do.
Being accused of breaking stuff, being accused of, you name it. Everything that happened that was bad on that project was being blamed on us. We'd be watched out of the window the entire project. It was just a nightmare project. And that was actually just me and Ken doing that together. We had a couple employees that would help us, but we were doing the install. And we realized, they finally said, okay, we're going to pay you for this. We're okay with it. And then all of a sudden we got another letter. Hey, we're refusing to pay. And it was the last third, which was about, I think, $7,000 to $8,000. And it was devastating. We're like, I don't want to be out that money, but at the same time, what are we going to do? So we did decide to go to court, the magistrate or whatever. We had all of our ducks in a row. We went there, presented ourselves super well. We thought we had it won, and then the judge had our contract there, which we had like generically done through Rocket Lawyer, never proofed it, all that stuff. And there was one line that said, final payment will be given upon completion of the job and the customer's complete satisfaction. And he looked at the customer and said, are you completely satisfied? And he said, no, Your Honor, I am not. He said, I'll be in touch with a verdict after this. And we were like, oh no. So, but again, so what did we learn there? It was a $25,000 job. We lost $8,000, right? And legally, we lost it, right? That was our fault for that. And we chalked it up to a learning. We go into school basically. And how much worse would it have been if we never fixed our contract that day versus the projects we're on now? That scares me. It's a contract that could have put us out of business at this point, right? And so it's hard to see that in the moment. I get very worked up over those things. I used to get way more worked up over those things, but that learning experience helped us to hopefully insulate us from a larger ramification.
Yeah. So the one I have, this is one a little more recent and devastating. So we had a client last year actually, and this is one that I'll throw myself under the bus. I just wanted this project. I wanted it so badly, and ignored every single red flag that came in on the way. So every single red flag the client threw up, any of the other contractors we were working with threw up. Nothing was looking good about this project, but I just wanted it. I saw the plans, I saw the design. I was like, we are doing this project. So ignoring everything, went in. I'm really abbreviating this here. Went as miserable as it possibly could have gone. Didn't bring in the proper subcontractor through the right channels. Didn't enforce our contract. Didn't do proper change orders. Allowed the clients to completely demoralize our team to the point. Just quick example. You could see the client watching from the window. Like you could see it, whatever, 100 yards away. This is a beautiful bluestone pool deck we did. And it was a natural stone deck. We were wet laying it. So we were mortaring these bluestone down. Bluestone would get mortared down, dried, be done. Client would come down and make our people pull out the bluestone that was already mortared down in, because any structural issues or whatever. They just didn't like how the colors like blended in because it was a natural full range bluestone. And because we were spineless, we didn't, stop it as soon as it should have been stopped. So long story short, we ended up losing $60,000 in the project.
It was a lot of money.
Yeah. So that was, just absolutely got it handed to us. But like Patrick said with the last one, really the ultimate takeaway from that is our contract, and that spawned what we called our client expectations system. And from there, hundreds of man hours went into it across the company, just making sure nothing like this will ever happen again. So that's the tack we try to take as a company. And as we grow is just like, look, I'll make any mistake once. Does that mean we make every mistake only one time? Absolutely not. But that's the mindset we try to have with it is like, look, how can we grow from this? How can we build from this? We've already absorbed all the loss. Let's make this as good as we possibly can. So from there, our contract got completely revitalized. From there, our change order process got completely revitalized. We were able to empower our project managers and our team with better plans, better drawings to say, hey, like this is what you're liable for, and that is it. If anything happens, here's the procedure, here's the process to work through this. And now we've had a number of clients since then that I could have seen going that direction, but the bumpers were so clear on either side where it's like kind of like, hey, if I go this direction, it's like, yep, sure, change order. Okay, won't go that direction. If I go this direction, yep, no problem. We're pulling off site. Okay, not going to go that direction. Like it kind of insulates us from all of those different types of harms that we were able to experience in the past.
Definitely great stories, guys. And that I'm sure will help somebody from going back to their contract and definitely rethinking the things that they put into the contract. So thank you for those two stories that you shared there and keeping this going. Do you guys have any mentors, people that you want to give a shout out to here on this podcast that have helped you along the way, or people that you look for to inspiration, both online, offline, anybody here that you'd want to give a shout out to?
Yep, for sure. So if I could just hands down, I'm going to say this, Frank Bork is our business coach, and that guy saved our company, saved my marriage. The guy has done so many good things for me, personally and professionally. So I can't speak more highly of that guy. Plug here, frankbork.com. If you want to check him out, no, he's super good dude, knows everything about the industry and has just propelled us into, I would say, he was a catalyst into our success for sure.
Definitely.
Yep. And all I can do is echo that. Yeah, he's been a just a wonderful, wonderful help to us. And he stepped in right really when we needed him the most, and has been extremely flexible and dynamic with us as we've continued to grow. He's really been able to, he's a great connector in order to get us in touch with the resources we need, and has just been, absolutely key to our success.
Great shout out. Good guy. He's been on the show twice. So definitely a fan of Frank Bork there. Yep. And bringing this to a close here, actually, one more question before I ask my final question here. If you guys, went back to the beginning, and if there was a different business other than landscaping, hardscaping, the outdoor services, whatever it might be, what would that business be that you guys would have started together? Or would you guys have started a business separately? Or was this the only business that you really had your eye on?
I think if I could say, it would be, I love the outdoors. That's why we started this. However, this is not a factory setting. So like 1,000 things can happen. And there's just like you can't catch everything in a landscaping construction business because there's so many moving parts. It's so different every day. So I think if I were to go back, it would have been a more systemic business that was like, this exact process happens whenever this machine turns on and it goes through this loop. And I know what happens if it fails, so that would be for my brain, I think, a business, but it would have to be like outside in the jungle or something cool. So I would get my, so I don't know. And I think we would agree, like we work really well. Like the power partnership exists, but I'm sure capable of starting something without each other. But we have had great success working together.
Yeah. I think real estate would have been it going back. That's another thing we would have been interested in doing.
Definitely. All right, guys, final question for you as we close out here. Thank you so much for your time for this interview. But going back to once again to the very beginning, what is one thing that you know now that you wish you knew from the very start? It could be anything related to business, personal and business, but what's that one thing you know now that you wish you knew from the very beginning? You can guys both provide different answers or the same answer if you've got one of those. Whoever wants to kick this off.
Yeah, so go ahead, Ken, you can go first.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's the power of delegation and the power of trust. So that's something we really struggled with, and I think it's really easy to struggle with. You've put in so many Saturdays, so many Sundays, even sometimes, building this thing by the sweat of your own brow, by risking your own savings, risking your own everything, really, to get it going, that letting go of it is one of the hardest things to do. But I would say delegating first tasks, and then secondly, and way more importantly, leadership to our team has been one of the most freeing and empowering things that we've ever done. And just being willing to step back and trust your team, trust God, and trust kind of like all the preparation and the practice and the planning and the system building that you put into it to make it happen. And then just be able to like step back and take a deep breath and be like, I've done everything I can. It's like sending a kid off to college, I think, just saying it's like, okay, you know what? We're just gonna let it run now and happen. And I think if there's one thing I'd say, I look back and wish we had done sooner, it would have been that. It's just kind of stopping white knuckling every last little bit of the company and just letting go and letting other people run with it.
Definitely.
Yeah, and similar there for me, but for me it would be patience, and it's something we're all learning at all times. But Ken and I both are like quick movers. We want things to happen now, and if they don't, we're wondering what's broken or what's happening. And so I'd say something we always say is just the importance in the long game. And like everyone overestimates what they can do in a month, but underestimates what they can do in a year. And realizing like, bigger right now isn't necessarily the right thing, and it's not necessarily the good thing. But realizing like, oh, wow, looking back and seeing how much happened over the last 9 years is incredible, even though, many, many times in those years, I wanted things to just like rapidly happen. And I like couldn't quite have that. And so like realizing the stress and anxiety like isn't worth it all the time. Like, and it's okay to actually be not complacent. I would say it's never okay to be complacent, but to be comfortable learning at a rate of speed that you can absorb, I guess, right? And realizing like sometimes it's okay to take the foot off the brake or off the gas, and to realize like I'm gonna really take time to embrace this moment, learn it, and then once I have it down, we're gonna go. But it doesn't have to be that way all the time. And I think we ran ourselves into the ground several times with that mindset. And I'd say thank God now we have a staff and a team around us that actually helps us to balance that. So it really prevents us in a way, which has been cool. But just the importance in the long game would be huge, and just the patience and taking some time to celebrate. We still don't celebrate a ton. So like I'm learning all these things as I'm even talking right now, right?
Definitely. Guys, thank you so much for your time and for putting up with my questions here. I appreciate everything that you've kind of said here, and I've got millions of other questions, but we'll cut it off here for now. Where can our audience go to find out more about the two of you, Local Roots, anything that you want to leave them with here?
Yeah, so if you want to find us on Instagram, it's just Local Roots Landscaping. Our website is www.localrootslandscaping.com. And then we'd love it if any of you guys are going to be down at HNA this year. We are honored to have been selected by ICPI. We're going to be the build team and the outdoor presentation team for the Hardscape Live presentations this year down in Louisville. So if anyone wants to come check us out, we'd love to see you. Come on up and introduce yourself. Tell us you heard about us on the How to Hardscape podcast.
Perfect. Thanks so much, guys.
Yep, pleasure's ours. Appreciate you having us on.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. Go check out Ken and Patrick at Local Roots Landscaping, as well as our sponsors of today's episode, Inlight Design, INLITE Design on Instagram. Check out their outdoor lighting products and get inspiration from their page as well. And Cycle CPA, if you need bookkeeping, accountants, or CFO services for your business, go check them out and let them know How to Hardscape sent you for $200 off their services. And we look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.